I'm excited for today's video on a very fundamental level. So not just because I like basketball, but this is a broader concept that I think applies to, I'll say, all sports in general. So the reason I stumbled upon this is because I was watching this Italy versus USA. This is the championship of the U17 Cup. And so it got me thinking, essentially USA the entire game, they pressed constantly. And so I was thinking, why does it work for high schoolers, but you see it a lot less in college, you see it way, way less in NBA, and you see it very rarely in the women's game as well. Why is that? And it got me thinking, and we're going to go through a little analysis on why that is. Let's go. Alright, so we're going to start with the NBA and work our way down. So essentially the game that we're looking at is Milwaukee versus Toronto a couple years ago, 2023 apparently. And this is a game where Toronto's down by a lot and they need to come back. And so what did they resort to? They resorted to a lot of pressing. So in pressing, essentially the idea is you want to essentially trap their weakest, slowest ball handler, essentially get an advantage and then create a turnover because of it. And so in this situation, who Milwaukee probably wants to target is Grayson Allen. Grayson Allen of the guards is probably the one. The big reason you don't see it in the NBA very often is because, one, you have really good passers. They make quick decisions and they pass the ball really well. Hey, Bobby Portis gets this ball right here, instantly finds Giannis who's wide open. Okay, not a difficult pass, just instantly boom, 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 boom. At every single level, passing is going to move the ball much, much faster than people can. Two is even the really unathletic players relative to the league, Grayson Allen is still able to use good athletic ability to create opportunity. It's like you don't need to be crazy athletic in order to create some kind of advantage because you're simply able to sprint into space so much better than the average individual. So because the NBA players are athletic, yeah, you can trap faster, but you can counter that trap so much faster as well. There's less of a gap between Grayson Allen and Fred VanVleet than there is as some of the videos we're going to see later. Essentially the concepts that you can pass it quicker, the fact that there's not a huge athletic gap between Grayson Allen and between the low end and the high end of athletic ability, and because people are never going to be able to move faster and you can pass the ball, means that pressing is always going to be very, very difficult in the NBA, which is why you very, very rarely see teams do it. Let's look at the second example where you never see teams do it. This is women's college basketball, 2024 season, and we have Ole Miss down by 6. Essentially, you got to press to come back with this amount of time. Okay, so they're going to employ their ideal press to get a turnover. And essentially, Haley Van Lith is able to just swing this ball to a wide open play over here. And the reason is, one, the athletes aren't fast enough to close on traps. Okay, so here, they're still giving Haley that much space to work with. Okay, so if you want to have a quick, efficient trap, you got to have less space than this. That's the reality. Two, when the ball gets skipped to the other side, they're not quick enough to recover one way or the other. Okay, so Haley is able to essentially beat this trap because it was slow and off balance, whatever got fouled. But if the ball was passed to Angel Reese up here, like, there's nobody that could cover that ground. There's too much space to work. Never see pressing in women's college basketball. And so then we move to men's college basketball. So for men's college basketball, again, you rarely see it. However, the times you did see it was with, like, what would come to mind was Shaka Smart when he was at VCU. So let's discuss why you saw it at VCU, but you don't see it at Power 5 schools, period. The reason it worked at VCU is because you're playing lesser competition where you're going to have that bigger athletic edge. Okay? You can recruit specifically really athletic players. And so in the game versus Kansas, VCU almost pressed almost never. It was like 5 possessions I could find. And the reason is because Kansas possesses A, more athletic ability, and again, the ability to pass at a higher level, which means that VCU makes it much harder to trap. Okay? VCU had success against teams that couldn't pass the ball very well and weren't super athletic. They did not have success trapping against teams like Kansas, where you have athletic ability and you have skill to pass the ball efficiently. And so in this game, they actually intentionally didn't press quite often because Kansas was getting quite a few looks because of it. And this is essentially why you don't see it in college. Okay, so we can see space, move the defense side to side. It's really hard to just sprint across the floor back and forth. And if Kansas has good spacing all the way around, you're going to find edges because you just can't cover that much space with just running around on your own. You can't do it. So then finally we get to the instance where you can do it. So this is Italy versus USA. This is essentially a high school basketball. What do you have in this situation? You have a huge athletic gap. It's not just a small athletic gap, a huge athletic gap. USA boys is crazy athletes. Right? Italy, I'm sure they're good athletes, but they're not going to be as athletic as the Americans are. Two, we see a lack of skill just simply because they're under 17. Okay? So Italy is going to make these kinds of passing mistakes when they get flustered that you're simply not going to see at the college or the NBA level. And so America is essentially able to just press and press and press because they're banking on mistakes being made. And so, yes, Italy is able to use these concepts like spacing and skipping the ball from side to side, and that allows them to break the press sometimes. But essentially, what America is able to say is we're able to do this more times than not. So essentially, the concept America is saying, this isn't even after a make. This is just them and they just want to press. Is saying we're so athletic, we can punish you when you make a mistake, and you're not skilled enough to punish when you have players leave. Essentially, we're too long, we're too athletic, you're going to make a mistake. And Italy did make a lot of those mistakes, frankly, in this game, which is why America won so handily. And so the reason you see it in high school, boys basketball, but you don't see it in college and NBA is because you have huge gaps in athletic ability. You have a lack of technique for high school basketball boys. And those, once they catch up with each other, it limits the ability to press on defense. And so that's why you see it at the lower levels, but not at the higher levels. If you enjoyed this, feel free to check out this video on transition in sports. Feel free to like and subscribe, but most importantly, have a blessed rest of your day.